Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your man, EGlaze, here on the Optimized Division Network. This show is being broadcast live on our Facebook page, Optimized Division, and also on our YouTube page, Optimized Division. And I'm so happy to be able to join you today on Saturday. I know y'all got a lot of things going on, a lot of things going around, but I think I wanted to just take this opportunity to use this platform to do things, and hopefully we can do more interviews through Optimized Division that we can, show people who embrace what we are embracing, by creating exposure and opportunities and possibilities for our people in the program. And today I bring in on a special guy. His name is Earnest Davis. I don't know what Mike, I'm getting people confused, but Earnest Davis. Earnest Davis is a phenomenal man. He's been one of my biggest supporters since we've created Optimized Division. We were introduced through a mutual friend, Pastor Mike Lynch. And once you hear Ernest, you'll see that he's the voice of almost everything. TV One. He's, for my Atlanta people, he was the voice of U103 back in the day. And I just can't wait to talk to him, because during this time, it's great to have people who have vision talk to us through this time. So without further ado, let me bring on Mr. Earnest Davis. How you doing, sir?
I'm going well, Emmanuel. How are you?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you taking the time on this Saturday to join me, man.
Absolutely, man. It's a beautiful day. I hope you don't mind me being outside.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous. I'm setting up all inside. I see you got sunshine coming off you and raining off you. I just want to ask, man, like I was just telling people, Ernest, we met last year through a mutual friend, Pastor Mike Lynch, and you've been involved and helped me with creating Optimized Division. But we also are seeing these young people today and what's going on in the world, and with the protests and trying to get results. What are your thoughts on what's going on in today's time?
I think, as I listen and see what's happening today, I feel like for the first time, people are getting it. And what I mean by that is that up until now, it was predominantly people who look like us who were at the forefront of the struggle, saying that Black Lives Matter. And so what was happening is, as the world looked at that, people thought, well, obviously Black people are going to say Black Lives Matter because they're Black.
Right.
But something's very different when you start to see our Latino brothers and sisters, white brothers and sisters, Asian brothers and sisters, and people have this collaborative conversation on display. Because in some situation, you're seeing the predominantly larger group, maybe people who aren't Black.
Right.
So now the world is saying for the first time, wait a minute, this is different, because we have people assembling who aren't Black that's saying Black Lives Matter. What it does is it cues you to want to think further, like, okay, so what is this really about now? And I think that's what's making the world lean in to say, so this is a bigger message than Black people saying we matter. This is a message that represents and vibrates to everyone. And now that there's this collaborative discussion, for the first time in my lifetime, I feel like people really want to see some change and are willing to do some things to bring about systemic change. Up to this time, I've always felt like it was token efforts. In other words, like in corporate America, you started back in the 80s and early 90s, it was they would hire the diversity person in the corporation. And what the diversity person who was hired to do that was to make sure that we were in corporate compliance, to make sure that as publicly traded companies, we have an executive management team that properly reflects a little bit of diversity to ensure that we're being checked off of the compliance report card. That's very different than what we have now. And
it's funny you say that, because I'm a little older. I remember back in '92, the Rodney King's protests and riots. It didn't feel like it was a long-term effort. Yes, once they got the police arrested and then federal charges came, it felt like, okay, we're done. and we walked off. And we've seen other ones like Ferguson in 2014 and all that. I don't know. I agree with you. This one seems different. This one seems like it may be a little long standing. You mentioned it feels different. It seems more inclusive. What could be the difference? Is it this generation just different, this new generation, or is it just years of building to this point that makes it different?
I think it's a combination. I think it's years of building to this point. I think the younger generation aren't as afraid to mix with people who don't look like them. And I think, honestly, hip hop and church has been able to tear down some of those racial barriers, sports to a certain degree. Because if you think about it, if your favorite team is Tech or State or Louisiana, whoever the case may be, you find yourself cheering on a stand for a common cause with people who don't look like you.
Right.
And you realize, wow, this guy or this woman next to me is cheering for the same team. And we're able to really sit next to each other, enjoy each other. Wow, actually have stimulating conversation. From a music standpoint, you have young whites listening to hip hop, black people listening to hip hop. And it's like, man, we've forgotten. I think young people have forgotten that they're supposed to feel some kind of way about each other. It's like in the midst of the music, in the midst of the sports, in the midst of the social media and all the things that are going on, it's helped us to become more social.
Right.
And because of that, young people say, wait a minute, I don't have a problem with you. This is crazy. Why should I have a problem with you? Because of the way you look. Your success doesn't minimize my opportunity for success. And I think that's been the biggest fear of the older generation. There's been this big fear that in order for you to be successful, that means it's less of an opportunity for me to be successful. So because I'm focused on if you get more money, then that minimizes the opportunity for me to make more money. So if I can keep you down, that virtue helps to elevate me up. And I think young people understand that's not necessarily true. There's enough for everyone. It's like air.
And that's funny you say that. Yeah, I think, it has been, and we're hoping that we're breaking the chains in that our younger generation, because I can be honest with you, for this to be going into its second weekend in many cities around the country, and it's still, and you're looking at what's going on in DC with the mayor and change that, it feels like it could be lasting. But I don't want to feel like a down player, but how do we, in your opinion, how does this message keep going? Well, I don't want to see it be like done after 2 weeks, and since we did some things.
I'm excited about this because I think this is one of the most precedented opportunities that we will ever have in our lifetime to give birth to your vision, whatever that vision may be. And the reason is because of this. The world is waiting and watching for solutions.
Right.
Oftentimes there are pockets of communities that are yearning and waiting, maybe a state here or there, a city here or there. We're talking about a global response.
Right.
So what that means is the opportunity is this: whatever gift you have, whatever vision you have, now more than ever is the time to bring it forward. Because those who are in influence, who can greenlight your idea, who can fund your idea, who can take a second look at your idea, even if it was the idea that they didn't look at a year ago or said no to a year ago. People, corporations, people of influence, government officials, city managers, they're going to be open to saying, bring forth your ideas. Now is the time. Now is the time.
Which segues beautifully into the next question. You are, I love this phrase, serial entrepreneur. And this is the opportunity, like you just said, with so many things coming up. A lot of corporations are looking different. I've seen and I've heard from people who have said, hey, man, how can we help what you have going on? So if you're talking to people out there who have these ideas, how do you keep focus on your ideas? And this is what kind of the topic of the day. In this time of chaos, you don't want to, I know you want to get caught up in it, but this is what we would call a great time. Now, if you got those ideas, how do you keep that focus? And when you're ready to, when your number is called to bring up something or to do something, how do you keep that focus in bringing it into this time of chaos?
Well, I'll share with you a few things. when you use the word focus, always remember what you focus on expands. So let's look at this from a physical perspective. If you were to look at a dot on a wall, or a picture on a wall, or a tree, the longer you look at that dot or that tree, your sight will begin to focus more in on that. And what seemed like a small dot, after about 60 seconds of focusing on it, will be almost the only thing you see. Right. You won't see as much of the peripheral because because your eyes are focusing in on something small that becomes larger. So the point in that is whatever you focus on expands. So if people focus on the problem, then the vibration of that focus is going to create more problems. But if you allow the problem to fuel your desire to focus on the solution to the problem, then it will be the solution that expands. So the first advice I would give is to focus more on the solution rather than the problem. The second thing you do is you ask yourself, as I focus in on the solution, where do I fit in within that solution? Is it starting a nonprofit? Is it starting a mentoring program? Is it expanding a mentoring program? Is it starting a business to help change my community? Is it leveraging my gifts to go help someone else who has already started to give birth to a bigger vision? You have to ask yourself, what is it that I'm going to do to be a part of the solution? So focusing on the problems is also, on the solution, it's also in essence helping you to focus on yourself. Because at the end of the day, what we want to achieve from this is not just collective and collaborative growth. We want to achieve individual growth. Equal justice really is about equality. And what equality is supposed to do is give each and every person equal opportunity. So at the end of the day, the equality is not just about equal. Equality is really about the opportunity. So it goes back to, even when someone gives you the opportunity to be equal, how are you going to pursue that opportunity? One of my biggest concerns and fears is that those of influence 10 years from now come back to say, well, you know what? I put out an RFP, which is a request for proposal, asking for people to bring us ideas on paper with a plan and a budget and projections. And I made the window open for a whole year and only got 2 applications. That's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is when corporations say, hey, we're going to loosen our lending requirements. And now we're going to allow more people to be able to go get loans. But before we do that, we need you to do A, B, C, D, E. And the people who are complaining don't do A, B, C, D, E for various reasons. It could be because they're so hopeless and have lived in despair for so long, they just feel like this is no different than before. So that's my biggest concern and fear. And I think the way that people remain focused is this. If someone walked up to you today, if Michael Jordan, who I just heard this morning, is giving away $100 million towards this
I heard it too. Right.
If someone walked up to you today and said, hey, listen, I'm going to greenlight and fund solutions. Can you give me your elevator speech as to why I should entrust you with these resources to bring about a solution? Would you be ready? Would you have the plan? Would you have the idea? Would you have it on paper? Would you have it properly vetted? Would you even know what the vision is for your life and for your community? Because you have to understand, we have to get specific. Just to say, I want to be treated fair. That's what I want. Okay, right. All right, so what is that? All right, so how do we manifest that? How do I, as a company, help you manifest that? Well, I just want to be treated fair. Okay, what is that? Walk that out for me. I just want to have more opportunity. I want my people to have more opportunity. Okay, what is that? What is the opportunity you want to do? What is the idea you have? Show it to me. Will you be ready? And see, if we focus on that, that focus is going to expand. because as solutions expand, that's going to reverberate and vibrate throughout the world. As the solution expands, the problem will be suppressed.
I like that. That's the solution expands. That's see, that's why we got you here, Mike, because I just know that you were going to be bringing those nuggets. But let me ask this: you talk about it, and I don't know if you've been approached, but sometimes I get approached from brothers, our other brothers, about how they can support. I always want to say that, you know, we will love your support and just to be there. But I think the thing that you brought up was important. We need you to be and look at us in equality and things of that nature. What have been some of the messages you've been able to deliver about supporting our cause? And like you said, we have our white brothers walking with us, Spanish people. What have been some of the things you've told them how they can support us through this cause?
Here's what I do. I ask people who don't look like us and people who look like us, because we can be guilty. See, the thing about racism, it's not just a black-white issue. And I think once we reduce it to being a black-white issue only, there are other brothers and sisters that we leave out of this problem. And if we do that, we're just as guilty, because all lives do matter. When you say equality, we're talking about our Asian brothers and sisters. We're talking about our Latino brothers and sisters. We're talking about everyone. We're talking about humanity, first of all, okay? So I try to get people to understand is that this cause is not just a black-white cause, so that they understand it's really about everyone being inclusive. The second thing I ask them to understand is that racism is not just conscious hate. It's bigger than that. It manifests itself in so many ways. It manifests itself in something as simple as, if you are holding interviews for a position and you see the name on the resume and one name says Leroy and the other one says Bob, is there something even unconsciously in your mind that creates a sense of instant biases that says Leroy is probably black, Bob is probably white? And do you call Bob first?
Right.
Or do you call Leroy first?
Right.
And whenever do you call first, why do you call one of the two first? And it's something, so I ask people to look within their own personal sphere of influence. Because the thing about it is that I'll use Michael for an example. Michael did what he can easily do, is give $100 million. Everybody can't give $100 million, right? No. But what is it can you do? So if you are an HR director, if you are a manager, and your sphere of influence is determining what the makeup of your company or your team is going to look like, do you examine yourself and ask yourself, do I have any hidden forms of racism issues within me? Are there any insecurities within myself? Do I judge people unconsciously? Do I look down whenever I walk through the grocery store aisle just so I don't have to look a black person in the eyes? Because if I look them in the eyes, then that means I have to speak. So it's much easier to just kind of look the other way so that I don't have to engage in conversation. So what I ask people to do is to look within themselves and ask yourself, how can you foster a better sense of community for humanity? That's what I ask my white brothers and sisters, my Latino brothers and sisters, even my black brothers and sisters to do. When you see a white person, do you see them as the enemy? Ask yourself that question. Or do you see them as another brother or sister? It's a calling that we all have to rise to. It's not just a calling that we ask white folk to rise to. It's everybody.
It's everybody. I always feel like, you know, our generation, the Generation Xers, are now, because we see the people out there, the young people out there, they're doing their thing. But I think it's our job to be, I don't want to say more behind the scenes, but be more of a focus and doing some of the leadership things that are required now. I always say my parents, they've done their job. My kids, they're waiting for us to create the paths. But one of the things that I think that our generation, has to focus on is being more creating those opportunities a little bit more. Like you say, when A, B, C, D, E comes up, we have to be the ones to help them or help ourselves fill out that. Do you feel like, as far as this generation is concerned, our generation, we are on the right path? We need to do more. What are your thoughts on that?
Our generation needs to do more, and I think our generation needs to understand there's still some lead in us.
Mm.
There is a position that we all have to assume. And it's so easy to conveniently say, let's stand aside and let these young folk lead the way. In many ways, for people, I think that's a cop-out.
Mm.
Because I do think that the younger generation has the power and the ability, the creativity, the tenacity, the intelligence, the voice to be able to lead. But I think they really want to lead alongside of us. Because what we don't want to say to them is that we don't care enough about this problem, or solution rather, and we don't believe in ourselves enough to co-lead this movement with you. So it's much easier for you to let you wake up in the morning and go down and protest if that's what your calling is to do. It's so much easier to let you come up with the idea that's going to lead us, because quite frankly, I'm tired and I really don't have the time, and I really don't want to, because I've demonstrated that for the last 15 years. I haven't done anything but complain the last 15 years about it. So, what's going to change in me now? So it's so easy to say, well, it's time to let these young folk get up and lead. And for that to sound like you've done something that's so noble, that you've allowed people to assert themselves in that position. Now we have to make sure if you do that, that you're not doing that because it's a coward move. Everybody's not called to lead. If your calling is not to lead, then certainly don't try to lead. Mm-hmm. But there is a leader within you. You must co-lead in this, because there is wisdom, there is knowledge, there's experiences, there are gifts that have only been given to you.
Right.
And we are called to do it together. When you look at the military and they're mobilizing and they're moving forward, you have gray-haired generals and you have young privates.
Right.
There's a reason for that.
Right.
There's some things that the gray-haired general knows and understands that the private does not understand. And to win a war, you don't send all your young privates to the front line and the generals hang back and say, all right, y'all go win the war. No, the leaders are out front with them. They're leading alongside them. They're put on their fatigues and they are with them. There is no mission in the military that does not have leadership, seasoned leadership by its side.
That's a great point. And it's that term leadership shouldn't be taken lightly. I think some people think that everybody can wake up in the morning, but and can be a leader. The one thing I've always had a problem with, Mike, and I want to get your take on it, is that we're always looking for that one leader. We will always looking to say who's going to be the guy speaking. I see sometimes we always say, I haven't heard from this celebrity. I haven't heard from this athlete. I haven't heard from this. And I think sometimes we minimize the opportunity that a lot of us have to be leaders, or some type of leader that we have. Like you just said, Michael Jordan can give $100 million because he has it. But that doesn't mean we can say he's the leader that we're looking for to do this right here. What are your thoughts on us sitting back sometimes waiting for specific, I guess, celebrities to speak on things and things of that nature, instead of like we're doing now, just going out and do what we can and finding other ways of leading? Well,
I think you lead from within. You lead from within first. You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself. And it begins with you, because when you try to lead someone else and you haven't led yourself, that's a reckless leader. That's someone who has no discipline. That's someone who's out of touch, because how am I to potentially even be in touch with you and your life and what you are experiencing and what you need if I hadn't even taken the time to become in touch with myself?
Right.
It's like, how can someone attempt to play on a team of basketball players and they haven't even learned the game and mastered the game of basketball themselves? You know what I mean? I mean, think about that. I mean, How much value would you be to any team if you have not mastered the skill within yourself and you have truly optimized your gifts and you have truly reached the maximization of your potential? That's only going to make the team stronger. The reason why champions and teams that go on to become champions It's because of the individual champions on that team.
Mm.
I mean, it's not just the collective experiences of the team. It's the fact that everybody is able to hold down their own. Everybody's a beast within themselves. You know what I'm saying? And we all have these gifts and talents. So the best way you can lead is to really look from within yourself, galvanize your gifts and your talents, make them and help them to come forward, because cream rises to the top.
Right. Right.
Leadership is something that you see a leader. Leaders, it's a calling within you.
Right.
Everyone can't lead, but you can lead yourself. Everybody can't lead others,
right.
but you can lead yourself. Everyone is a leader to a certain degree.
Right. I think one thing I wanted to bring up is, because for people who don't know, Mike, why do I keep calling you Mike, man? Mike Roberts. I'm thinking that, you know what? I ain't gonna lie. I was thinking about back in the 90s when we talk about you with Mike Roberts, then you Ernest, and then Ryan Cameron. And for people who don't know, Ernest was part of one of the V103 days, and now he's the voice of TV One, Radio One. You hear his voice all the time, which means me to this: our media and the importance our media will play going forward. I think between COVID-19 and us staying in and getting that, and now the movement, our voices need to be heard. And I'm looking for more. And I don't know if there's a lot out there as far as our Black media being able to get those stories out there. How important will media, our media going forward, be a part of this next stage for all of us going forward?
Our media, Black media, is going to be important. But I think we have to be careful that we allow ourselves to wait on anyone else to carry this message forward. I applaud you, because our media is really what we're watching now.
Right.
That's the beautiful part about media. Now media has splintered off into so many things. You have people that you've never heard of, who have 150, 200,000 followers. That's media, right? That's power. That's influence, because that is followers that are attentively listening to what it is you have to say. See, and I'll give you an example for radio. You may have 1 million people listening at the radio at one time, but only 100,000 really paying attention to what an announcer is saying, because it may be in the background while you're at work. You've got it down low. You're riding in your car and you kind of got it down low, and you only turn it up when your favorite song comes on. So the talk and the chatter that's in between, nobody's really kind of listening to it in some cases. That sometimes is less as powerful as someone such as yourself, who may have 100,000 followers, because that's followers who, all of those followers are paying attention to everything you have to say. That's a different kind of influence. You can mobilize now more people through platforms such as this than in many cases any television or radio network could, because there's a locked in list of eyeballs of people who have an interest in all these causes. So I think media now is really just, this is a form of media. But I do feel that our media, our entertainers, have a responsibility to remind us. I'm going to challenge every hip hop artist that somehow, as a part of your lyrics, as a part of some of your songs, just as you remind us about the struggle, just as you remind us about how you are a gangster and you ain't taking nothing else no more, just as you remind us of the Lexus, the coupes, the Jeeps, and the Benz, right?
Right.
Just as you remind us about all the honeys that money can help you get, remind our young brothers and sisters of the opportunity. Remind our young brothers and sisters of the power of looking within yourself and understanding who you are and your identity and what that means for you and your community. Remind us of the struggle is not just about what we've been through, but what we're going to, what we're running towards, and what we can have. And the fact that just because you've been in the struggle all this time doesn't mean you can't come out of the struggle on top.
Right. And you being a man of faith, I think I tell everybody, one of the greatest podcasts I've heard is your interview with Pastor Mike Lynch on the Lynch for the Leader, and your faith and what it's meant for you. What do you think the importance of our faith, our churches, will be in this movement as well? I think sometimes this generation is a little different when it comes to how the church is involved, but I think it still is a place where it's needed because church has always been there for us throughout our struggles, from slavery to civil rights to where we are. What do you think going forward it will play again as far as getting us to this next level in this movement?
You know, I'm going to say something that a lot of people are not going to like. I'm going to say something that hopefully people don't click off when they hear this. And some folk going to say, I can't believe he just said that. Before I say it, but it needs to be said. This must be said. Before I say it, let me establish some credibility. I grew up in the church.
Mm-hmm.
I am a church musician.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing for churches since the age of 14.
Mm-hmm.
I have been involved in churches, and I think churches has been one of the greatest institutions that has ever existed on the planet Earth, because it has given us, especially African Americans, a safe haven. Even back in the days of during slavery, Sunday morning service was a place that you could come to and gather together. And if it was just for those 2 hours, you could release, gain some sense of hope that it's going to get better, give some praise, and just for a moment feel like that greater is coming, better is coming. Now, but I'm going to say this. One of the greatest disappointments I have experienced is in our churches.
Mm.
And here's why. Churches have had the opportunity and the platform to lead this cause.
Mm.
If those who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray, then you shall hear from heaven. I think churches somewhere got off the mission of moving a nation forward and began to focus on how we can move ourselves forward. Like, in other words, isn't it interesting that there's one God and one Bible, but how many initiatives do you see where 100 pastors across the country, or even in the same city, come together on one cause? Is it because of ego? Is it because, well, you know, we're doing our own thing? Is it because lack of resources? No. Churches collect so billions of dollars every Sunday, but Sunday is still the most segregated day of the week. Now,
what did King say? Sunday at 11 is the most segregated hour.
It's the most segregated hour. So my question is this: how can churches, black churches and white churches, for so many years, not see that the gap is in the uniting of the churches, so that the churches can be about moving the mission forward? It's about kingdom building. The kingdom is everyone. So churches, in my opinion, many of them, not all of them, have started to hide behind God. And here's what I mean by hide behind God. We're going to get together. Ooh, things are bad. This is an evil world. Let's all assemble together, hold hands, pray, and sing Kumbaya. And we're going to count it and call it as though it was. Amen. Pass the offering plate, go home. See you next week.
Next week.
No. So how many times are we going to assemble, hold hands, pray, sing Kumbaya, pass the plate around, and say, see you next week? I think churches have been doing that for so many years, and we say, God, you fix it. God, you are mighty and you are powerful. And you know what? God is mighty and is powerful, but he put his power within us. There's a piece that in scripture that we forget, when Jesus says, when I am gone, greater than these things that I have done, you shall do, because I am with the Father, and the Father and I will be in you.
Mm.
So instead of us hiding behind God to say, God, please go fix this, God is saying, wait a minute, I gave you everything you need to fix it. So churches, you hold your elected officials accountable. Churches, you empower your people with financial literacy. Churches, you empower your people how to become homeowners. Churches, you empower people on how to be better stewards of the 90% versus just the 10% of tithing that you always talk about. Churches, you command and empower your leaders. You have some sensitivity training within your churches on how to ensure that we have a neighborly, loving, neighborly conversation. Churches, I have given you everything you need. I've given you the word. I've given you leaders. I've given you financial means, the same financial means to go buy planes, the same financial means to build 9 campuses. And I'm not saying that churches should not spread the word by building campuses. I think that's beautiful that churches have a number of churches within churches, but it doesn't stop there. How do you hit the streets? Churches have been playing it safe for way too long. There's a lot of things churches won't bring up in the pulpit or in their sermons because they're so afraid that our biggest givers may get offended and leave our church. So because we got 4 corporate guys who sit on the board of X corporation who gives each $100,000 a year, I'm not going to bring this up on Sunday morning about racial biases, because even though I know the word says love thy neighbor, I'm not going to bring that up because I don't want John, Bob, Susan, Frank, Leroy to be offended about that. I'm not going to bring black worship leaders into my white church because they may be uncomfortable, same as black churches. I'm not going to invite white worship leaders into our service because that may make our people feel uncomfortable. And if they feel uncomfortable, they will stop coming. So we have to continue to give the people what they want. That's not what God says. God says, feed the people, not what they want, but what they need.
What they need. I've never thought of it from that standpoint where you said you've never seen a group of preachers saying we're together as one. It's always come to my church and we'll talk about this. My church is doing this weekend. This church is doing that. But it would be so much powerful if you could see 20 churches get together in the community and saying we're throwing this event together this weekend.
That's right.
And not looking at it as a
not in white churches.
Yeah, and you seeing it, like you said, not looking at it as a, well, we're trying to say we want you to come to our church so we can get the most collection plates. We want to see the community change. I think that's what we've been missing a lot. And I think that's, to me, going forward, all of those avenues have to be touched, from our youth to our generation, to the churches, to our officials, our elected officials, which goes into our thing. A lot of people this year talk about voting. This is a big year of voting. Of course, it's the presidential election. I think also a lot of local elections are going on. But I just want to know your thoughts, how important this year will be for us going forward. I think 2020 is the pivot year. I think 2020 was the year that needed to be a refreshing year. We were so caught in our ways of doing things that for 1 year, everything was taken away from us, and we're going to panic through it or we're going to get through it. And that means everything from the way we pray, the way we assemble, because assembling will be different, to doing things such as politics. I don't know if you're a political guy, but I know a lot of things that we do are involved in politics. So what are your thoughts going forward for this year as far as that's going to be concerned?
People oftentimes don't understand. They think that it's the president that has the power to influence everything that happens in your local community. And the reality of it is that what happens in your community is a greater reflection on the leadership you have within your community. See, it's the people that are on the school board council, that's on the city council, that's the mayors. Those are the people that really get to direct the dollars. Now, don't get me wrong. There are federally mandated dollars and federal dollars that make these local and regional and even statewide opportunities available, and that is important. But the people who don't understand the political makeup of this country has to understand that those within power, local small power, has the opportunity in many cases to direct millions and billions of dollars into your community. So what does that mean? If you elect someone locally or here's what people don't understand. There's two ways of getting someone elected: by showing up and by not showing up. See, whether you vote or not, you still help somebody get elected.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if you don't go vote, then that means those who did vote got the other person elected. But if you had shown up to vote, and maybe the person who should have been elected would have been elected if you had researched their platform to see what it is that they stand for. See, what makes voting so much easier now is that before you go to the polls, you can pull up online your ballot. Yep. And you can click everyone to see what their platform is. And there's certain things I look for when I look at people's platform. I look at the inclusivity in their photos. I look at some of the things they stand for. I look at what their record is, and I look for certain words that's mentioned in their platform that says, okay, this person is conscious of that the community is made up of people who does not look only like them. Because you can see a little bit of you can get a glimpse of people's hearts in their platform. And then you can ask others in leadership, others in leadership who you respect, and say, listen, like-minded people. So let me ask a like-minded person. I don't know anything about this judge who's running. What do you think about him? Who would you vote for? Tell me, do you know anything about these people? Because what happens is they get to determine how your community is policed. They get to determine how much money goes into your child's school. They get to determine about the after school programs that are in your community. They get to determine what jobs come to your community, because they can make your community welcoming to corporations or not welcoming to corporations. They can decide really your life that you immediately grow up in locally. So in many cases, the local elections are more important than the federal election. Than the presidential elections. Now, they're equally as important. It's important in terms of exercising your right, your privilege to vote. But if you want to see change quicker close at home, you really have to vote close at home.
And I think a lot of people miss that point, because I think a lot of people always look at the top. It's kind of like one of those, we feel like the trickle down event, but they don't understand that in communities, you grow the community internally smaller first, and then it'll branch out. First, I want to just thank you for doing this, Ernest.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for even having me on. I appreciate this. I'm humbled.
This was
really
awesome. I was like, I just know we're going to touch on some things, and it's candid, and that's what I want to be able to do. But that's the one thing I hope that keeps going in our communities as well, is the candid conversations. And the one thing you kind of mentioned before is, I think one of the biggest difference has been, as far as media is concerned, is social media. Back when, like you said, we talked about during the Rodney King, there was no social media. We counted on the media, the news media, to report. But now, like you said, we have influencers, we have people being able to get messages out, whether you like it or you don't. I'm a type now, and I don't think there's any such thing as bad publicity or good publicity. I just think it's publicity now, and being able to get your message out.
I want to say one more thing that I didn't mention that I think is important. This should be a time where no one gets a pass card, black or white. If there is someone in leadership, period, black or white, hold them accountable. If you attend a church, and here's what I mean by that. If you attend a church, God said tithe. I believe in tithing, but he didn't say which church to tithe to. Tithe. Here's what I mean. If you attend, here's an example. If you attend a church, and let's use COVID-19 as an example. If you attend a church and you've been tithing there for years, and your church is not putting some of the money that you've been tithing in all these years back in the community to feed people, not just to feed people who attend your church. If you attend a church who's not good stewards with your money in a way that it benefits other than the people within those four walls, leave. Because you have to make sure that you're holding leaders accountable, black or white. This is a season of anyone of any influence who stands guard as a leader is responsible for being stewards, good stewards, with what has been entrusted to them. And they have to be a part of the solution.
Right.
The Bible says, feed my people. So if your church has asked to see a financial statement every now and then, every member is a shareholder of a church.
That's
So
right.
when I look at being a shareholder of a company, of when I hold stocks, I get to go to annual shareholders meetings.
Right.
And every quarter they disclose what the financial conditions are of that company. I have a right to audited financial statements as a shareholder to see how the piece of this company is being handled. If you notice, how many churches share financial reports nowadays? Every quarter. Here's how much the pastor's getting paid. Here's how much money we put in the community. Here's how much money we collected. Here's how much money's in the bank. Here's what we're doing with it. Think about it.
Right.
How many meetings they have at churches now about we're going to meet and talk about the financial. The only financial conversations they have is tithe.
Yep.
Bring my tithes in the storehouse.
Yep.
So that my people may have meat. Okay, so let's talk about the storehouse. What are we doing?
Right. What are we doing?
What are we doing with this money?
Right.
How much money do we really give to feeding people who are hungry?
Right.
And how do they qualify for this money? Can they call the church and just say, help? We had people come to, I actually attend two different churches, and we actually had people come to one of the churches that I've been supplying funds for the food bank that said there was a church I've been at, and this lady said there's a very large church and prominent church that I've been attending who won't even take the phone calls of I need. We're not feeding anyone through COVID-19. How can you continue to give your money to a church who will not serve the needs of the people?
Right.
So I say that to say this is a season of accountability. Nobody gets a pass card anymore. Black, white, period. You're a leader, lead. Do.
That's what's up.
Show up.
Do.
And if you don't, we will dethrone you. We will not support you anymore, black or white. We're going to go and put our time, our services, and our talent into those institutions and behind those people who demonstrate their love through actions and who are transparent in what they do. I'm sorry. I know you were trying to close.
No, I wasn't. Actually, I was going into another one, but you take me to, which brings me to, if we're going to, I can honestly say this. I've done over 37 interviews in the last 2 months. You only one of the first people that made me stop and pause for a minute, because that's what I know what you do. But going forward, I think I don't want to lose focus. I'm kind of at the point now in my life where I want to we did it for a week. Cool. Let's go back to the status quo. If you had anything, a way of saying what needs to happen next, if somebody come to you and say, Ernest, what do we need to do next to continue this movement in this thing? We've hit on a whole bunch of subjects, but at the end of the day, what do we need to do next to make sure that we are doing the right thing for us, our community, and our futures going forward?
I would tell them, and I would tell everyone listening, watching, replace we with me and I. Because sometimes when we ask people, what do we need to do? We still don't make ourselves inclusive of that we. Be prepared when you ask, what should we do? That you're prepared to say what I'm willing to do.
Right.
Because that's a different kind of accountability. This is a solution that, in order for it to be sustainable, it can only be as sustainable as the people within it create change within themselves. Because if we just make it only the system, the system finds ways to twist laws. So we could write in the law right now, let's say better policing laws, right?
Right.
The government could mandate that every community that there's fair practice standards among policing in the communities, right?
All right.
That changes the law, but doesn't change the person.
Don't change the person.
See, the person has to be changed in order for this to be sustainable change, because for every law, there's always a way around a law.
Yep.
Lawyers are brilliant about litigating law in a way that when they bring that law into the courtroom, they say, well, there's some subjectivity as to what this law reads and what it really means. And I'm going to present to you as a good attorney how you can look at this law and how it can be interpreted in this way. That's why great lawyers have to always bring previous cases, because those cases take precedence in terms of how the law, or the letter of the law, is seen.
Right.
So there's always going to be a way around every law that gets created. It's going to help. But what's really going to bring about sustainability is when the people change. Now, I don't think we have the power to change hearts. I think only God can change hearts. But if everybody takes up their part in doing this, that's what we can have sustainable change. And I think people have to, there's one thing that we have to remember too. It's the power of the spoken word. We have to be very careful what we give our ears exposure to. You have to understand, but just that the very power of that which you speak vibrates into the universe, and it goes forward and assembles all the things you have spoken, and it goes out and gets all the things that's needed to come back and manifest what you said, because that's what happens with the spoken word. So we use our mouths to continually vibrate the problem, and vibrate how bad it is, and vibrate that we have racial inequality, and we're just a horrible country, and we just have so many issues. The very thing that we say has the power to go forward and assemble and get everything it needs to manifest what we say. So if nothing else, we need to start speaking life to say, this will be the change. This is the time that racial injustice is going to change. This is the time where we're going to eliminate some of the racial biases. This is the time we are going forth as a country to where people will stand guard and stand watch to ensure that there's equality everywhere, not just in our streets with police officers, but in our boardrooms, in our lending regulations and lending laws, in home ownership, equality economically, equality as it relates to health care services, equality as it relates to access. We have to start speaking that, because that is going out, assembling what we need.
Finish with this, and we can log off, because this is, I'm gonna make sure this is gonna be on our YouTube page. We're gonna share this Facebook to death. How hopeful are you for what's going forward?
I have never been more hopeful. And I think a lot of that is because, see, I don't think anything happens in the world by coincidence. I think COVID-19, I'm hopeful because the world stopped. See, this wouldn't have gotten as much notice if everybody was as busy as we normally are. See, people are, I mean, you're going to have more views from this because more people are at home.
Yeah.
But if they were out doing all the things that they normally do, fewer views would be watched. We would be moving on.
Yeah.
Right? I am hopeful because for one of the first times I see a mix of everyone championing the same thing. That gives me hope. It gives me hope that as COVID-19 is going to cause every business and every organization to change what they do and how they do it, just by virtue of what it is. It's a pandemic that's causing everyone to reassess their lives, to reassess their businesses, to reassess their organizations. how perfect of a time as we think about change.
Mm.
It's so easy to include change. It's like when you're building a house. It's so much easier to paint a wall this color, or to, no, let's have 2 doors over here. No, let's do this, because you just changed the blueprint.
Right.
Because you're about to build something.
Right.
So I feel like we are in the rebuilding stage. We are renovating America. COVID-19 is causing us to renovate America.
Right.
During the renovation process, think about if you were renovating your home, just how easy it is would be to change sinks. Because you're already in the renovation process. If you already got the countertop out, right, and you got to put the countertop back in, it's always easier to replace the sink and the plumbing because you already got the plumbing and the sink out. So you just put a new one in as you put it in. It don't cost you any more other than the sink itself. But if you go and say, let's change the sink, and you're not renovating, it's like, that means we got to take off the countertop. That means we got to go find more plumbing. That means that means we may have to replace the cabinets. But if you're already renovating, it's easy. That's why I'm hoping, because America is renovating. People are renovating. Businesses are renovating inside out.
Right.
That's why I'm hoping.
And that's what's up. I don't know if you're a social media guy, because I'm sure people are going to ask me, how can I find out more about Mr. Earnest Davis? But where can they find you? Or is there any sites or anything that you can direct them to?
I've just started to have a social media presence. So you can find me at I Am Earnest Davis on IG. You can find me at Real Money, Real Talk. I have a podcast called Real Money, Real Talk. And you can find me IG on that and on Facebook is Real Money, Real Talk Radio. So I would say the best place to find me whenever I'm posting things about what I'm saying, what I'm doing, or about the podcast is at Real Money, Real Talk Radio. And you can find the podcast on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, and of course, realmoneyrealtalk.com.
Well, this was definitely real talk, and I appreciate you taking the time, sir.
Thank you, man.
I want to do this again. I know we got some, like I tell everybody, you're one of my guys that I go to. You've been a big help for Optimize the Vision and helping get the vision out there, and I appreciate that. And we look forward to hearing more from you. Real Money, Real Talk. Mr. Earnest Davis. Also, TV1, you can hear his voice, man. You can tell by his voice. He do what he do. So
that's the other side of me, yeah, man.
Yeah, that's the other side. Thank you, man. I appreciate
you, I appreciate you, Manuel.
Have a great one, everybody. We thank everybody for listening. Peace.